Hello, and welcome again to Talking Baseball with Leon Lee. Today is March 24th, 2021, and my name is Steve, and I'm here again, of course, with Mr. Leon Lee. And again today, Leon, we have the never-ending super lineup of guests.
Yeah, we do, and it's always a pleasure to be back with you, Steve, and with our main group. You know, these are baseball people that we're joined at the hip, and we have our two guys that I love to death. We talk a little trash. I know young kids can't understand us old guys talking baseball trash, and we do have another very, very extremely special guest with us today, Stoney Briggs. Ex-professional ball player, close friend, like a family, real close to my older son, Derek Lee, and he's here to share some knowledge. And we have Eddie Cervantes, we call Silky. How you doing today, Eddie?
I'm doing fine, Leon. Just looking forward to it as usual.
All right, and we got Matt Ceriani, catcher supreme, who's he's a developer now of new catching equipment, trying to further the game, and we have with us again Matt Ceriani. How you doing today, Matt?
Hey, I'm doing great, Leon. Thanks again for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. This is a golden time of the day for me, and especially happy to have our guest on today is Stoney Briggs. How are you today, Stoney? Tell us what you've been up to.
I'm doing well, Mr. Lee. Just been up to working with the kids, just trying to change Baltimore baseball for the youth, giving them an opportunity and just grinding every day, trying to make it happen with them. Have a coaches clinic coming up this weekend to get the coaches on board and so we can get these kids out here and getting them on the right track on the game of baseball.
How many kids you have in your program right now, Stoney?
Mr. Lee, it's approximately right now as a total of 24 kids of right now for one team. But as far as just for one team.
Because what I understand, I know you had some kids come out of there, some top prospects. I know I talked to Jerry Manuel and their thing, and you've had players going to higher levels. I think you probably will eventually have kids going to even higher levels as you guys grow. But what do you guys, I mean, how are you guys teaching the kids? And we had a lot of conversations about the new analytical situations and us, we're kind of dinosaurs in the game now, but I still believe that the game is still only designed to be played one way. What do you think?
We've actually had two kids, Mr. Lee, to go back to what you said. We have two kids 2 weeks ago that got scholarships to go to school from the team that we just finished up with, the group we finished up with, the Rattlers. And they'll be going to attend North Carolina A&T. And then he has a choice between A&T and Towson. And then one will be going to West Virginia.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, we need to introduce you to Eddie, because if I always say Eddie's probably one of the best middle infield instructors I've ever seen. And then we're going to get you lined up with Matt's caught stealing, because I think it's a great product. We all at Scouts, we have these speed guns that are iffy and they can be manipulated, but you can't manipulate Matt's product and so forth. So, hey, let's talk some infield and some catching stuff. Eddie, kind of talk to Stoney a little bit. He has this, our way of teaching and stuff. And I think this is a good format to talk about infield play and catching. What do you think?
Well, first of all, let me, I'd like to straighten something out here. When we worked together, Leon, with all the kids, I don't remember any of them ever calling you Mr. Lee. They always call you Leon.
Stoney. I don't correct Stoney, because Stoney, see, he's from an area where they have a little respect. You guys never learned it.
We're West Coast, Leon. West Coast.
It just sounds a little odd, but then we can live with that.
The older I get, the more I hear Mr. So I just said I guess maybe because I'm getting old, people call me Mr. Lee. So hey, maybe you can learn something from that, Eddie.
It's always been that way, guys. Even
I
when he
know it
coached
has
me.
Well, believe me, I get that Mr. more than I'd like also these days.
Yeah.
But
As Matt gets older, he'll start getting called, Mr. Ceriani too.
anything's better than coach.
Oh yeah.
well, hey, getting back to the topic, you know what, Stoney, when I work with kids and I've always been after pro ball, I got into, unfortunately, I got too quick into officiating and umpiring.
That's
and
right.
that's where Leon finally drugged me off of the field to get me working with kids. And even though I kept on umpiring, but I always felt like I had a knack for working with kids. And back then, still just being fresh out of pro ball, my thing was the ability to show the kids by example was so important. If I was telling them how to do something, I had to show them what I was talking about. And I thought that was very important for younger kids at a younger age. I've always talked to the kids that there were, and I would call, and there may be a fifth one, but I go with four particular ways to learn how to do something. One, you can read it, that is written instruction on how to do it. Two, you can hear it. You can hear somebody tell you and describe how to do it. Three, you can watch somebody do it. And four, you have to do it and you learn on your own and make mistakes and whatever. So those are four, and mostly the latter, the watching somebody and doing it on your own. Those are the forms of learning that become more dominant. The others, they're options for kids on their own when they're younger. But yeah, so by setting the example that way, and then of course, and we profess this all the time, man, you've got to learn how to be your own coach. You got to learn how to be your own coach.
Yes.
You got to learn early what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and be diligent and be honest. Work hard on the things that you're not good at. Keep working on the things that you're good at so you get even better. But be honest with yourself and understand that, you know what, you may not be as good. Too often, younger kids I've seen, younger kids that aren't good at a certain aspect of the game, they don't want to work on it because they're embarrassed. They're not very good at it. And if you stress to them that that's how you become a more well-rounded ball player, and it's going to make you better at what you are good at. Those are the things that I think initially, that's what I try and convey to the kids when I first come on board with them and start kind of trying to work with them.
Yeah. But don't you think, Stoney, I know I saw a lot of these teams, and you've seen a lot of them because you guys go to a lot of tournaments, and the coaches are really nowadays really controlling the game more. It's like kids aren't really allowed to watch and do on their own as much as we want them to, because that's, to me, is the main way they learn. I know Matt coaches catching more by letting catchers learn how to feel their bodies and move around, and I know that's what you guys do. What would you say to that?
And it's just, I would say, is different kids need different coaching. So I would say to that, whatever that kid or that team needed at that time, you would probably make that adjustment too. But I see a lot of guys, like you said, who go overboard, who want to overly coach. I want to make this play. You're not going to be able to make any other plays. You can yell and move anybody you want to move, but those kids eventually are going to have to make those plays to get them off the field.
Exactly. What about you, Matt?
Well, I agree. There's not one way to basically coach every kid. You can't clone players. You know what I mean? You
Exactly.
you can't teach one kid the same way. Like Eddie was saying, there's 4 different types of teaching. You know, I've come from a family of teachers and coaches, and you know, you're right. Every kid has a little different personality, and you have to find out what that kid's personality is before you start teaching him. And I think showing kids, and then we're all professional players, you know, and now coaching because we love the profession that we had. And I think that's a big part of finding, you know, the better a coach is, it happens because he can see what player needs what kind of help, you know, and I think for me, I've been doing the private instruction for 10 years since I got done playing. And, you know, I saw lots of different coaches. Most of them I was pretty cool with, but there was a few of them that didn't know how to connect with anybody. And those coaches kind of were in and out, you know, and I'll be honest, I think most of those coaches were the better players in the major leagues. They had trouble connecting with guys that needed work because they never really had problems with stuff. So, you know, the better coaches are sometimes the guys that have had more failure or more different stops in their career or more adversity. And, you know, I've used that in my coaching to be the best I can at it.
Yeah. You know, I'm not going to get on Steve for being a Dodger fan. I forgive Steve for being a Dodger fan, but and Steve is an amateur coach to a degree, but we've spent years and years, we've talked about, and even talking to Steve, and he's gone to a lot of games, even when I was doing River Cat radio, you know, remember what guys, when I was doing River Cat radio, Steve would come out, we would always have these conversations, and we've seen different aspects of travel ball kind of got into the pro levels now, where players are becoming a little bit more robotic. But even having these conversations, you see certain things. Like myself, Eddie said it right on the head. You know, as far as trying to teach a kid how to become his own best coach, and Stoney, you know, you could talk to guys like Ricky Henderson. You couldn't tell Ricky how to steal a base. You know, he went by what he saw and what he felt. The question is, how do we get back to kids are quitting the game after 12 years old right now? 71% of kids are quitting baseball after 12 years old because it's simply not fun. How do we get the fun back in it? The fun is, I think, kids learning how to make their own mistakes and be accountable for it. What do you guys think?
I agree. I'll jump in there, Leon. I agree. You know, that whole aspect of learning. Well, let me relay this. While I was officiating, one thing I learned as an official, as an umpire, is that as soon as some coach or some player tried to admonish me for a call that they felt I missed, and they started yelling, I shut down. I wasn't nobody, when you think about it, nobody likes to be yelled at, whether you're a player, so anyway, using that as an example, players don't like to be yelled at. As soon as that coach starts yelling at that player and showing him up, he shuts down and the learning process stops. And so what you have to do is what you want to do in that situation. And I know, Leon, having worked with you for 20 some odd years, man, that's the first thing you do is you let the kids, you talk to them. And we always talk to them after the fact, after it happens. Hey, Johnny, what were you thinking on that play that with that runner at second or whatever the situation was? What were you thinking on it? And in conversation, and you try and create some dialogue so that the player is teaching and learning on his own through that conversation. And if you allow them, you give them that chance to create that situation that way and learn from it, he's going to be better off. And you're going to be, as a coach, you're going to get better production out of him also. But so, yeah, that's one way I look at that whole aspect.
So one question I wanted to ask Stoney, I'm taking some notes here because when I talk to you experts, I always take notes. how to be a better coach. But one thing that Stoney mentioned that I liked is that he's this weekend. It sounds like you're going to be giving a coaches clinic, and I know you guys have done this in the past. But when you give a coaches clinic, Stoney, trying to train other coaches, what are some of the key things that you like to focus on when talking to the adults at that level?
The main thing is to how to run a practice. You wouldn't realize a lot of these coaches don't even know how to run a practice, or dads that volunteer, and my hats are off to them. But, helping these guys, and, you teach some of the guys bad habits and they don't know. But if we can help them out and say, hey, this is how you run a practice. This is the structure in a practice. This is what you want to get out of the practice. PFP. Some of these guys have never heard of anything like that.
Right.
And so when they their kids get to high school or try and go out for some of these travel ball teams, and, different drills and things are starting to happen, and you look out of place, this is why, a lot of guys are not unprepared.
But, I to add to that, Stoney, I always say sometimes with some of these coaches, it's okay if they don't know. The problem becomes when those guys that don't know, they don't know. And it's really, they're right, Eddie, they're dangerous. I mean, the guys, I always say that you're dangerous when you have a responsibility to help kids, build confidence, to build self-esteem, to teach kids how to deal with failure, and not, some of these kids are they're learning to get participation awards. They don't have to be good, just show up. And then don't worry about a mistake because the coach will cover for me. Or if the coach told me to do it and it didn't happen right, it's his fault, not my fault. And then if for a coach to start telling kids, playing guessing games in a way, because I always say, you're real dangerous if you don't know that you don't know. And you have to understand the kids have to learn. That's how they got to learn to be accountable for their own mistakes, because the game is built, we all say it, but the game is built around failure. I mean, Matt is a 1-8 catcher. Matt is going to block balls. He's going to move. He's going to receive properly. And he's still going to throw out 12% of the runners. A hitter is making $20 million a year if he gets a hit 30% of the time. Right? And now we're telling these kids, you got to get a hit. Come on, hit that elbow up. How come you didn't hit that ball to right field? Well, the coach didn't even know how to hit a ball to right field, and so the kids are getting information. They're getting this pressure on them. And I always say they're feeling all this tension, and they don't know the difference between tense and intense. Intense is in the core, tension is in the shoulders. And you just simply can't play like that, and I think you see a lot of kids are playing tense, and that's what's taking the fun out of the game. So these coaches, to me, and I don't want to be too critical because there's a lot of good amateur coaches out there, but the game is so technical now. The travel ball, these coaches are going into these travel ball tournaments saying, we got to win, instead of saying the process is what's going to win you ball games, learning how to have every individual understand how to play their positions and how to relax and breathe in pressure situations. Stoney, tell Derek looked like he put you to sleep, didn't he?
Yes, he would. And I was thinking about that on the way here. It was just, it would be no excitement. And, I'm just like, D, what's up? Everything good? Yeah. It's just one, yeah. And he just hit 4 home runs and probably 5 in 2 days. And I'm like, D, what's up? Nothing. Nothing changed. The demeanor is just the same. It never changes. It's never up. It's never down. You really, you don't know what's going on there, but you just know he's calm.
He's always calm, but he's intense. The intensity is there. He just don't show it. Because when he was little, he would ask me, Pop, how can you never get mad? Well, I mean, I don't want to show anger. I'm intense. I'm going out there to compete, but I don't need to show everybody all this. I can't play like that. Matt can't play like that behind the plate. He won't throw anybody out, right, Matt?
No way. And you know what? To piggyback on what you guys are both saying, it's the coach that doesn't know what he's talking about, that loves the kids a lot, that he's the guy that gets angry. And when a coach gets angry, the kids shadow and mirror exactly that emotion
Good
that
point.
the coach was showing, and I think what Stoney's doing, like with the coaches clinics, needs to be done across the country. It needs
everywhere.
to be more education
everywhere.
for coaches than the kids, because when the kid's going to fail, if the coach understands that failure is part of the learning process, then he becomes a better coach. When the coach doesn't know how to fix the player, he needs to realize he needs more instruction. The coach needs more instruction. So, and a guy that's working an 8-hour or a 10-hour shift, he comes out there, like Stoney said, it's just great that you can be out there. Thank you for being out there, dedicating your time. But in all honesty, those coaches need as much or more instruction than the players, because they're the ones that the players are looking to when they fail. And like we said, failure is a huge part of the game. So when the coach gets upset, it's because he doesn't know how to fix it.
Exactly
and we've all played professional ball, and none of our coaches got mad at us. Nowadays you're seeing coaches that never played pro ball. They have no business being in the game. They got memes on the internet. They got this, they got that. They've never struck out 4 times and had to go back to the hotel.
Exactly.
They've never done that. So how can you really say that what you're saying is going to work for these kids? Well, what's going on is these kids aren't trusting the coaches. They're trusting their mentors back home, and so they're not listening, and they're telling their agents, stop making this coach mess with me, when the coach may have had, like us, 13 years of pro experience. All of us have had that, and the fact that none of us really played in the big leagues is a testament to the fact that we're grinders, all of us, and the coach that's not a grinder is just a coach who's after one thing or another. He's either after the publicity and the glory, or he's after the helping the kids. And either way, if the kids don't perform and he doesn't know how to help, man, he's behind the 8 ball. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, and you have to get those kids' attention and keep their attention once you get it. And that's the big thing. You have to get their attention. You have to establish trust within each individual kid separately, because one kid may have had some pro instruction, but he's got an ego, and the other kid doesn't have an ego, but he's a better athlete. So, or whatever the combination of traits and attributes are. So, it really, a lot of kids are lucky to have had certain mentors, and other kids have never had that. So you can't hold any of that for or against either kid. But again, like Stoney's saying, to be able to go out and do coaching clinics and help coaches run practice, and you run the practice, the coaches need to learn and listen like their players. And when they do that, then the next time you come out, you could literally be an observer, and they're kind of mirroring what you taught them.
But they have to realize, the coaches, the one thing they really have to realize is it's about the players. It's not about them.
Correct. That's a big thing.
Yeah. And a lot of these coaches that I coach against, they don't realize that the game is talking to you all the time. You have to listen to the game. At every point, at some point in the game is talking to you. If you listen to it, it's going to tell you something. So those coaches that don't know, and they wonder
write that one down, Steve.
Yeah, and they wonder why that, how did you guys come back and get in the ball game? Because now we know that nobody can go up there. We're down 3 runs. So until we get the time run to the plate, nobody can swing at the first pitch. So as I didn't learn that until I got to pro ball. So now these guys are learning it, in 13, 14 years old, understanding and knowing how to play the game. So when somebody like Mr. Leon Lee and Mr. Matt shows up to the ball game, then they like, okay, these kids understand the game and know how to play the game. Somebody's teaching them the right way.
Right.
And it shows. You can see the difference.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Stoney. Unfortunately, with some of those coaches too, they're, like you were saying, Leon, some of them they just don't know. And they just try and go on what they have learned when they were a kid, what they remember. What's happening though a lot also is that a lot of these coaches, those youth coaches, they're seeing stuff or hearing stuff on TV from these broadcasters that is more advanced stuff. And so what happens sometimes, a lot of times, is they'll pass that information on to the kids as if these kids can understand it and are ready to implement that type of information. And most of the time it's just way too advanced. And
Yeah.
and the coach doesn't know how to explain to that advanced way of that advanced concept, so to speak, and start, slowly implementing more information before you get to that. So there's a variety of things that are happening there with youth coaches. That is, and then you have ego too. You have ego, like you said. Everybody wants to be, have the winning team, and they want to put their stamp on how they. Well, this is how many times have you heard? Well, this is how we do it here.
Yeah, they do that. This is the way. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the way we do it. I don't care what you learned over there. Well, you know what? There's always more than one way to learn something. And not that it's good to have a variety of input on different ways to learn, but there's never just one way to learn something. And that's.
But but one thing, and add to that, Eddie, and what we're talking about here, and I tried, and it's funny, when I was managing in Japan, they kind of made a big thing of it, because in Japanese baseball, Stoney, you've been to Korea, right? You played in Korea.
Yes, sir.
But it's like they work really hard. Sometimes they try to avoid making mistakes, so they won't get out there and get it in advance. And then when I managed over there, it was like, okay, we're on defense. I'd let my coaches know ahead of time, in this situation, this is a score. If they get a first and third situation, I don't care how many outs, we're going to play back and get an out. Luckily, if we're lucky, we'll get 2 outs, and we'll give up a run, because we don't have a real strong, we got a strong offense, but we don't have a real strong pitching staff. So I would let them know. So if I'm looking at matchups, I'm looking at our defensive situation, I'm looking at my pitching bullpen, and they'd always wonder, how do you know what to do? How are you thinking about 3 or 4 different things at one time? And I say, I'm not thinking about 3 or 4 things at one time. I've already thought about them before the game. I've studied lineups, I've studied matchups, who I got available. So when these situations are unfolding, I'm just reacting to what I've already thought about. So when sometimes when you're trying to teach kids, if you know about coaching, you start teaching kids how to think situations in advance. So if this were to come up, if a ball's hit here, this runner's this fast, I'm going to come up and not hesitate and throw a ball to a certain bag. Or this guy's pitching, I got a plan in my mind about hitting. This guy's going to pitch me away. I'm 4 batters away, and I'm already seeing a pitch, whether it's a slider, I don't care what it is, it's going to be on the outer part of the plate. So in a way, you're already playing that game 2 or 3 innings in advance. And nowadays you see a lot of coaches, even at the pro level now, they're just reacting to what's happening right now instead of being prepared for it happening. And then when you actually make that play, it's almost like deja vu. Heck, I've already made that play in my mind. And to me, the great players historically, you can call it old school baseball if you want to. Willie Mays made a big giant over the shoulder catch, running out in the deep part of the polo field, and turn around and kept the runner from advancing. And everybody said, what a great catch. And Willie Mays said, I wasn't worried about making the catch. I'd have made that catch 100 times. My thing is I wasn't going to let the runner advance. He took the catch for granted. Eddie's such a great shortstop. He's, oh, what a great catch. Eddie wasn't worried about catching the ball. He was worried about making sure he threw the ball to the bag he wanted to throw it to, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're lacking, is teaching kids how to see the game in advance rather than just reacting to a coach's voice.
And I honestly think, that the analytics, like what you're talking about, Leon, the experience was our analytics. That was the analytics. Like the only analytics you had back in those days, and even when I played, was what you remembered from seeing it. Like you didn't pay attention.
Exactly.
If you're a pitcher that's not starting and you didn't pay attention to what those guys did the 3 nights before you pitched, it's literally your fault. Like nobody else is going to tell you to pay attention. Like there's too much other stuff going on. The stats are one thing, but now it's taken itself to a different level, to where if you rely on that, you're missing the part of the game that okay, so everybody knows the stats, everybody knows the analytics. What about the guy who knows the analytics and knows that you know the analytics? Now, if I want to beat that guy, and I do that with base stealers, like I know the guy knows, I know he's going to run on a breaking ball count. And I know when we get in a breaking ball count, I have a decision to make on what pitch I call. So yeah, if I got a guy who I know is trying to do that, I might call the pitch out there and risk a 3-1 count or something, or whatever, whatever the case may be. So that's
But you
where
see, the thing about it, you made a decision, right? You made a decision. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You made a call.
And I wouldn't do that with a guy that couldn't throw strikes. I do that with a guy that has no problems, throwing in a 3-0 count or a 2-0 count or a 2-1 count.
Right.
But that's me knowing my pitcher, knowing the guy out of the pen, knowing what he looks like that night. There's so many things you can't read on paper that this generation has completely lost. And they're bringing in these people that are supposedly smarter than we are. But I would beg to differ. I would say that the people that are on the ground, hitting balls in the rain and catching ground balls with bad hops on bad fields, those are the kids more ready to react when the unknown happens. And the unknown happens, as we all know, every single night. There's something you've seen happen on the baseball field all the time. If you think you've seen it all, then you need to retire.
You haven't seen close to it.
Right.
So
right.
I've got a good list here of what you guys are talking about for coaching kids and coaching clinics. One thing I wanted to touch on that we haven't talked about too much yet is what I think what in reference to what Leon was saying about relaxing and being too tense. So I'll throw this question out and have it go around the table, starting with Stoney. How do you coach kids to relax and have fun at the game? And how do you do that not only with the kids, but maybe even at the coaches' clinics?
Well, I'll talk specifically about the team and the kids that I coach. And we always laugh and joke, and I always try and find a way to make them laugh during a drill or sometimes just to ease the tension out there. Just do something out of the ordinary to just like, coach is crazy. No, not coach is not crazy. Coach is easing the tension out here so everybody can relax, laugh a little bit, and we're still having fun, but we're getting the work in all at the same time. So it's a good mix. But what I tell the kids is, when they make a mistake, I say, hey, come here. Let me talk to you for a minute. Hey, coach, yes, what's going on? You know what? What's that, coach? I love you. Go back and have some fun. I'll talk to you in a minute. And that's it.
I love that, man. That's like when your coach is cool like that, it's because he knows that he like for example, you bring up Derek, and what a great example. Derek Lee was a 15-year major league veteran. And like when you're playing with him, he's cool as a cucumber, man. That guy, you could go 0 for 4 or 4 for 4 with 4 home runs, and you wouldn't know the difference. You're still going back to the apartment or whatever you're doing. Like, that's because of what Leon taught his sons, and like you saw it. And like when you're a coach, like I'm a coach, and we take that approach with our kids, they're willing to come up to us and ask us questions. Whereas the coach that doesn't know what he's talking about, that coach, he's hard to talk to because he really doesn't know the answer, and he can't be cool. He can't be cool about it. There's no way, because he doesn't really know what he's talking about. So, and I get it. We get half of the coaches that really don't know. So that's why it's really imperative that I think that some of the outreach needs to be more as much towards coaches as it is towards kids and players. If you want to get the best athletes playing baseball, then you need to have cool people that allow those kids to be social in that aspect, and like to ask questions that really are on their mind, because when they're comfortable with you as a coach, they'll ask that. If they think they're going to get yelled at, they're not going to say nothing. They're not going to say anything at all. They're not going to even want to talk to you. And whenever you go and approach that kid, they're going to be like a little apprehensive, and you don't want that. Like a good coach, I can tell you're a good coach, Stoney. I know Leon and Eddie are as well, because I've been around them on the field. We've all coached kids together. I had a kid call me last night, Dylan Schrock, DJ, like our guy from Sacramento, Leon. And
DJ, yeah.
He's taking the guy's job. He's taking a senior's job. He's splitting time with another guy. He's at an NAIA school in Iowa. He found his sweet spot. And you got to love it, because he called me up out of the blue, and we just talked for 25 minutes, and
Yep.
There was nothing. He didn't need anything from me. He was just wanting to check in. And I'm like, yeah, man, he's asking about the device and everything going on. And I said, yeah, we're close. We're great. But how are you? And he goes, well, I'm getting time. I'm taking this guy's job. I'm doing this and that. I'm like, hey, I don't doubt it, because I've seen that kid when he was 13 years old, and he was fearless. He was a little bitty dude,
no talent.
No, exactly.
And now
Exactly.
he's in a college playing ball.
Right. And he's at a level that he's competing at because he picked the right level, because we kind of told him, hey, look, that's a good level for you. Go ahead and, run it out. See what happens in 4 years. You're going to get a degree. You're going to get out of town. You're going to go see some new things. And that's why I'm still in the coaching game and not doing something that doesn't, involve my heart, because my heart is where I'm at. Like, I love kids. I love working with kids. I love seeing them get better, even if that whatever level they get to. And if they fail at a level, I'm going to pick them up and tell them, you're still a good person. You're a great kid. I love you. It's not about any of that. It's about taking the adversity and making the best out of it, and I think coaches is where it starts. And you can get the best out of players that don't have that love at home or don't have that love at their high school. And think about it. The high school coaches, it's so hard to find a good high school coach. These high school coaches, they yell because they don't know, they're taking a little check. I mean, I get it, but it's so hard to have somebody take a 6-week or a 9-week or a 12-week or whatever the high school season is and dedicate their whole year to that. They're usually just teachers, and God bless them, because those people have a place and a role, but realize, like, the high school level now is so out of the thought process for scouts. They don't care where you're playing high school. They care what you're doing for summer ball and what competition you're seeing in summer ball. Because they know in the high school levels, depending on your district that you go to school, and you might only see 82 that season. They can't scout that. They need to see what it looks like when you're facing 92. And I think we all understand that. So, like, to be able to level the playing field, you really have to level what's going on now. There's so many high level people, with the people that have all this money, and they're going to these showcases and getting all this and that. The device that we created is going to level the playing field for catchers, but it's going to take time to get the rest of these kids involved in another metric. And it doesn't matter about metrics. Like, I mean, I'm a metric person, I'm selling that, but at the same time, I believe in more old school philosophies. And I believe that unless you get guys like Stoney and Leon, old school, baby. Like, because look, you don't need video. Like, I didn't even have a computer when I graduated college, and I don't know how I graduated college, but I mean, goodness, because I had baseball to look forward to. And I think a lot of these kids that are wanting to go to school, they don't even know why they want to go to school, other than the fact that we're telling them to, because there's 4 more years of playing baseball. That's all I can really come up with. I mean, there's trades and stuff. You can make money doing a lot of stuff without school now. Look at this computer stuff. It's crazy. So anyway, I mean, just to pass that along and just kind of co-sign on what you guys are saying. You guys are right on the money with that. And it's a little bit, it's inside the writing. It's not exactly black and white, so good coaches are hard to come by. And when you find one, like, the 3 of us here, and I mean, everybody that's trying to listen to be a good coach, realize it's about the way you approach each kid individually and then the team as a whole. And that's what gets teams to be championship level. You can take a group of average players, and when they all believe in each other, they're going to play better than better players. They'll do it every single time. I've seen it. I've been a part of it. I was one of those guys.
Well, to add to that, I know myself, been around it a long time. Eddie, been together. And, it's funny, just got a call this morning, good story, from William Brooks. William, man.
Oh, yeah.
And he had talked to Ichiro today, and he called me to tell me he had talked to Ichiro and said hey and stuff, and all the years, and those are things that when these guys were young, and I was over there early, and the things that they remember, I think about Ichiro, and there's this Masanori Tanaka who came over. I had apparently worked with him when he was a little kid when I was managing in Japan. I couldn't remember. And then, guys like Larry Walker and even, Delino, things that I had a kid I coached at College Wood Bat League in Lodi when Eddie was with me. Remember, a kid that went to Texas Tech.
Yeah, the outfielder.
Yeah, I've drawn a blank, but he goes to Billings, Montana, and he's playing for Delino, Stoney.
Oh, wow.
And Stoney and Delino called me because I had told him a story. When we played, we got beat by this team, and I said I knew we were going to get beat that day when we were over in the Bay Area. And oh my God, I'm trying to think. Richmond. He goes, well, Coach, if you knew we were going to get beat, how come you didn't do anything about it? I said, how come you didn't do anything about it? You're on the field. I said, you guys thought you're going to go out there and roll over it. I said, you don't ever step on the field until you prepare to play. Right. And so he called me from Billings, and Delano was with him. Delano was managing in Billings. And he goes, yep. He said, that's what the same thing I used to tell Delano when he was a player. Don't ever step on the field until you prepare to play. And so Masanori Tanaka, he would tell some things that I told him when he was a kid. And now he's won 24-0 and with Rakuten in Japan, and he signs a big contract with the Yankees. He comes over here and he's still mentioning my name. And I don't even know who he is, because I was, I had did a camp and then brought a bunch of the kids into the Tokyo Dome where I was managing that night. I couldn't remember what I said, but he said, don't ever step on the mound until you prepare to pitch. Don't ever step in the batter's box till you're prepared to hit. And then learn how to breathe. And I used to tell him, relax, learn how to breathe, keep the tension out. And all those are the things, Larry Walker, when he was in AAA, same thing, right? Stoney, you remember, is that don't step in the batters, because they kept telling Larry Walker he couldn't hit with his hands up there. He couldn't hit. And I'd always tell him, I'll build a fence around you and keep these guys away to keep telling you what you can't do and make you believe what you can do, and that came with just relaxing and breathing. So to me, that's a universal thing that when I've had these personal conversations with Hank Aaron and Frank Robinson and Dick Allen and all these superstars, all they tell me is learn how to breathe. They said, center your energy down in your core, keep those shoulders relaxed, learn how to breathe. Mm-hmm. Then you have a God-given talent that'll take over. It will. Stoney, you said it earlier, the game is always talking to you. I think that's a great term. We're just out there playing part of the conversation and doing the things we can do, and we just having fun playing. I mean, it's not fun in games, but you got to make it fun by learning how to compete. So these are things to me that are universal, Steve. But when you say learning how to relax, Eddie, that's why we call him Silky.
It's okay to get out when you're doing it full speed and the guy gets you, like, damn, all right, he got me, man, that was cool.
So what?
He got me.
That's right.
He got me.
So what?
I never get thrown out, or he never throws a ball by me. I never miss a curveball. Wow, who is that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you know who the dudes are.
And know I'm gonna try it again the next chance I get.
Well, even all the pickup ball, you might have got me, but here I'm coming back again, right?
Back again. I'm on my way back.
Go ahead and relax. I'll get you next time.
That's right.
Steve, my little 2 cents, I'll just make it quick on getting kids to relax in the dugout. It's just kind of like what's been passed around already with Leon and Stoney and Matt. And when the kid is struggling, you try and let them know that, you know what, hey, that's part of the game and it's okay. It's okay. Learn something from it. That's all. It's not a bad thing. If you're not messing up and then you're not learning. You're not learning. If everything is going perfect, then you're not learning, because all you're doing is you're just up there. Who knows? You might be in a trance and you're not learning anything. You just everything happens to be hitting your bat at the plate. Everything goes in your glove out in the field. But you're not learning. If you're making bad pitches on the mound and you're getting hit, well, you learn from it and you make adjustments. Same thing out in the field and at the plate. So you let the kid know that when he's not doing well, hey, pump him up, whatever. On the other hand, on the flip side, the kid that's got 2 or 3 hits that game, had a home run, you're going, man, hey, after the game in town, man, shit, anybody could have hit that guy. Anybody could have hit that guy. So you kind of trash talk the guy that's doing well to keep it light, and then the other guy, you want to pick him up and let him know that it's okay to mess up. That's part of the game, and that's how you learn. And so that's kind of that in a nutshell there. One way to try and keep the kids a little loose, a little relaxed. And then, of course, out in the field, when they're out in the field, you can't help them. You just got to tell them, you know what? Go out there, concentrate, get that box to be a little smaller, slow everything down, like Leon was saying, get that box to be smaller where you're concentrating, And, those nerves they'll go away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'll relax.
I remember one game I made 4 errors in 1 inning.
Oh,
They
no.
took me off first base. I'm a superstar at first base, but all of a sudden I was playing with Bob Horner. Remember Bob Horner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob was getting beat up at third, so he's trying to talk me into switching with him for a few days to give him a break because he was getting whooped. We had this really hard AstroTurf in those days, and that ball was coming off that turf, and it was wearing his butt out. And he goes, Leon, man, you got to give me a break. You played third base. Let me play first a few days. I said, oh, no, I'm not going over there. So he goes and tells the manager, right? He goes and tells the manager, and the manager come to me and says, well, Horner's he's got a broken nail. He can't throw real well. So you're going to have to play third for a couple of days. I said, man, don't believe that, Ralph. So he's kind of faking you out. And I hope Bob is listening to this podcast too, so he remembers that. So anyway, I go to third base and I get a ball. I hadn't really had it. I could play third base, but I hadn't had a chance to really get acclimated. It's a big difference from the right side of the field to the left side of the field. And one of the first balls hit, I made a play, but later, about the third or fourth inning, a ground ball hit to my left, and I go get it, and I'm trying to throw it to second on a force out before I got it, and I bobbled it. I kept going after it, and I bobbled it. It hit my knee, went down on the ground, rolling on the turf, and I'm still chasing it across the field, and I reached down, and I kicked it, and I kept chasing it, and when I didn't realize, when I picked the ball up, I was a deep second base. The runner had scored. The runner who hit the ball was at second, and I turned around, and the people were like, what in the world? So I got this long walk back to third base, right? So the next ball hit to me. I checked the runner at second, and then I threw the ball all the way over the first baseman's head. I had a strong eye through it, way over Bob's head, ended up in the bleachers. And by then I'm going like, oh no, please don't hit another ball to me. So what happens, guys, when you say don't hit a ball to me?
It comes right to you.
The next one was on that turf, and it hit a seam and ran right by me. That was 3. Well, anyway, make a long story short, I made 4. And overall, they scored 9 runs on my 4 errors.
Wow.
Now, on the other side, I hit 2 home runs and a double, and I drove in all 7 of our runs that day. So they wrote a story. I was responsible for all 16 runs in that day.
Oh, my God.
So our manager, he was laughing about it. I said, that's got to be a record. So I said, hey, you got all kind of ways to set records. And I was like, all right, I'm responsible for all 16 runs in this game. I don't think that's ever happened before.
Wow.
Right. Wow. But the bottom line is, what are you going to do? We got to come back out there and play tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know what I told the media, I said, you know why I'm not feeling bad about that? Because all 4 of those errors is Bob Horner's fault.
We'd have won 7-2 if I had been in there.
Exactly. What I'm saying too is there's no absolutes in this game. We have no clue what's going to happen, how that particular day, how things are going to bounce, or what's going to happen. We just, as professionals, we just got to suck it up, go back out there the next day.
Yeah.
I tell the kids, once you hit the ball, you got no more control over it.
There it is.
Somebody makes a great play on you, you can't control that.
So run hard.
Just hit it hard and take your chances.
Well, Leon, I know we're coming up against time already, if you can believe that. But
told you.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is go around the table one more time, and I'll just kind of summarize some of the key things that I heard you guys say, and then maybe go around the table one more time, have you guys make some final comments. From a coaching standpoint, I heard leading by example is a good point to make, and coaching to the individual that you guys talked about, keeping it simple, having some fun, learning how to be your own best coach, and having those conversations with kids, letting them be a part of the thinking process, and then listening to the game, seeing the game, observing it, and kind of seeing the bigger picture and looking at what it's telling you. And go around the table now. And what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm going to start off on that one because I have only one thing to say about that is Stoney for me, nailed it on that part of it is tell the kids you love them. I tell you, when you tell a kid that, it takes all the stress out. No matter how bad you look, you make an error, or how unsure you feel, or your self-esteem and confidence is at all-time low. When you tell a kid you love him, all is right again. That's all I got to say about that one.
That's a good one, Leon. You know what? I'll just throw in something like, well, what my dad used to tell me when I would go out to a game. He used to tell me, of course, back in those days, we took infield and outfield before every game.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
I know we've had that conversation about what they're not doing a lot these days, but he used to tell me, he says, go watch the guy on the other team that plays your position. When they're taking infield, outfield, you watch him and you watch what he does well and try and learn from it. If he does something that you think isn't very good, well, now you've learned something else about it too. So it's not always just about the game itself. It's how preparing, and we've talked about this a lot, it's preparing yourself mentally and trying to learn from just everywhere and anywhere you can about your game and how to play the game. And I tell you, you know what? I've always done that all the way up into pro ball. I've always watched the other guy. There are not very many guys that overly impressed me. I always thought, while watching these guys, I thought, okay, that guy, man, I like the way he does that. But I never felt they did anything that they were that much better than me. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Except for two guys. And I told you one of the guys a couple of weeks ago, I think, Leon. I got a chance to play with Mario Mendoza. We were a double play combination down in Aguascalientes. Anyway, him and Ozzie Smith, watching Ozzie Smith take infield, outfield. And I'll tell you, Ozzie made a play one time. Ozzie made a play, and you talk about those cutouts and turf fields. He made a play going behind second base that hit the lip, and he was already on track for it. And he was almost laid out in the air, probably about 2 to 3 feet off of the ground, when the ball hit that lip and went over his head, and he flashed his glove up. It went in his glove, and he hit the ground, bounced up like a cat, and threw the runner out. And I'm watching him in the dugout, and I tell you, I was amazed. I was
Can't
amazed.
teach that.
And Leon, I wasn't easily amazed watching other infielders. I was impressed a lot by a lot of infielders I saw, but I was never ever amazed. And Ozzie amazed me. So anyway, but yeah, that's just my 2 cents there.
He's magic. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I mean, I completely agree with Eddie, and I actually mirror the way he thought about, counterpart middle infielders for me, catchers. I never felt like there was anybody out there that really outplayed me on the fields that I was allowed to play on. Obviously, you watch, TV and you see the best of the best on the big leagues, but you only get to play against the guys you get to play against. I think for me that, number one, if you love the game, focus before the moment, and then just be in the moment. And the more you can be in the moment, the less that anything else matters at all. And I think that to me was that's the little bit of advice that I would say, that has traveled with me, been a part of me, is who I am. And in the moment, I think I'm as good as literally anyone I've ever seen. But again, you see a play like what he's talking about, and if you can't tip your hat to a guy that does something amazing, then you need to check yourself. And I just think that that's the humbleness, the humility that baseball brings. It's so much like life. It's you only see what you see, and you react to it based on what your preparation is. So that's my 2 cents.
Stoney?
And mine is just for the kids to just be the best them that they can be. You know, don't try and be anybody else. Don't try and be coach. Don't try and be mom or dad. Just be the best you that you can be for that day. Enjoy that day and learn from that day. And whatever you did well or did not do well, you know, grade yourself, you know, go back over it, analyze it. Where can I get better? You know, where did I improve over the week? Where did I improve over the day? Where did I improve during the at bat? Just constantly making changes, you know, to put your game at the highest level, and then having fun with it, you know, along the way.
Well put, Stoney. Well put.
Hey, Stoney, I can't, I just can't even thank you enough for being on. You know, you're welcome. And I know Steve will say the same thing. This podcast we do once a week, we're really getting serious about it now. You know, we're getting a lot of feedback, and having guys like yourself. I mean, you're like my son and family, and you're always welcome on this. You know, we're going to be doing them every week. You're welcome to get on here. We'll have other guys. I know the Linos in the season now. I told, and Marquise too. I want to get these guys on to start giving Matt a hard time, because Matt thinks he can throw everybody out. He just simply can't. I don't care what gadgets he got.
29.4%. I got a good shot.
Well, I want to get those guys on here, because see, we got to quiet Matt down. He ain't all that.
Okay.
Just remember, cotstealing.com. Cotstealing.com. Go check it out. Oh man, that's awesome.
But
man.
I
appreciate
again,
it, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I can't see, kids understand now when you talk trash to them, they get mad. They think you're getting on them, but they got to understand they're in trouble if you stop talking to them.
Yeah, you better
Yeah,
believe it.
it's part of the
better
love,
believe it.
man. It's part of the love of that game.
Yeah, he didn't say anything to me today.
No, he didn't. We'll get to it. Yeah, exactly. I must not have done nothing. Yeah, you got it. That's it.
But we got to bring that back. We got to bring that back in the game. We got a lot more to talk about, and I think kids need to learn that's part of being able to relax and build a confidence and self-esteem. You're on the field because you belong there, you know, and you got to belong there. People pay their money to come see you play in that uniform. You're not actually playing the game. You are the game. Yeah. And when the kids need to learn that they belong out there. Right, Steve? I'm going to let you close it up, Steve. And again, Stoney, just can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you guys for allowing me on.
Well, thanks again, guys. Thanks, Stoney and Matt, Eddie, and Leon again. It's obviously a privilege to listen to you guys talk about coaching and about your professional baseball experiences. Just want to remind everyone that the podcast site is talkingbaseballwithleonlee.podbean.com. You can also find the podcast on Spotify and Google Podcasts. And of course, the email is talkingbaseballwithleonlee@gmail.com. And we hope to talk to you all again soon.